people will tend to project their idea of God or Krishna or the self as somewhere out there, somewhere not here, not here and now, not permeating this body, not permeating this mind here and now, but something, some kind of formless entity that's beyond. No, it's right here and now. It's hiding behind all of these forms. That's its hiding place in everything.